Kanye West appeared on Nick Cannon's podcast called Cannon's Class, and they covered a plethora of topics. This podcast, I guess my commentary of this podcast will be sure to leave just about everybody offended if you're a binary thinker. But it is telling in terms of where our culture is and trying to quickly dismiss people we may not understand or disagree with and write them off as crazy, or as Kanye would say, yazy. So I'm going to play you guys two specific bits of this interview that I found extremely fascinating, and I'm going to react to them. And I'm pretty sure one side of you guys will really appreciate the first half, and the second side will, if you like the first half, you may not like the second half, and vice versa. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. Let me drop the intro.
I don't need nothing else. Every time I'm with you, yo, it's something else. It's a fact, and it's nothing else. Got your hand out, you don't even need help. Oh, I don't need nothing else. Every time I'm with you, yo, it's something else. It's a fact, and it's nothing else. Got your hand out, you don't even need help. Oh, that's right. I don't need nothing else. That's right.
Hey, what's going on? It's Ruslan with KingsDreamENT.com. This channel exists to encourage, empower, inspire you. Yes, you to live out God's dream. We cover all kinds of different topics from music, marketing, culture, faith, everything in between. I go live on YouTube multiple times a day. So I'm going to be giving you guys my commentary on this Kanye interview with Nick Cannon. Part 1 of it. I'm assuming there's a part 2. Quick thumbs up, like real quick. That helps a ton with the algorithms. I'm going to get right into it. This is Kanye on some of his controversial views. Here we go.
Okay, so now let's get to life. In 50 years, there's been 22 million, over 22,500,000 black people aborted.
Yeah, we're jumping deep into the waters, ladies and gentlemen. We're going right for it. Why are we going right for it? Because we should. Because I think I want to get you guys to the meat of this interview. And my man Kanye goes in on the topic of abortion, specifically the history of Planned Parenthood. Wild stuff. Very interesting. And I think Nick Cannon does some good pushback. We're going to go right into it. Now, one of the things you'll notice about this interview, if you listen to Kanye in long form and you're not just watching tidbits, you're not just watching little pieces, he's very there, right? Like, he's there. He's in his right frame of mind. Now, granted, he does a lot of talking on this. He doesn't really let Nick speak a lot, but that's every Kanye interview, right? So have no confusion. Like, Kanye is there, but he's also Kanye, what he would call a brain sprain, okay? He's been diagnosed with bipolar. I don't know if he's taking any medication for it, but just know that that's what you're going to get from him. But when you actually hear him in long form, you'll notice he jumps around topics a lot. But my man is pretty on point, in my opinion. Now, again, some of you guys might hate Kanye, and that's all good. But I think he's pretty on point. Yo, shout out to my man Louis Davis for just joining the channel, becoming an official channel member. He'll get access to all kinds of live private streams. Thank you for being here, brother. Appreciate your support on the channel. You too can support the channel by becoming a channel member, giving a super chat donation, or joining our Patreon. Let's get back to Kanye and Nick Cannon.
Strategically and on purpose. Planned Parenthood.
He said 20 million people, black people, have been aborted. He says strategically and on purpose. This is crazy.
Was set up and placed in minority communities to kill black people.
You talking about when Margaret Sanger, the originator of Planned Parenthood at the time, because a lot of people, when you say things like that, in their defense, they say, well, Planned Parenthood today is a different organization. But
I listen, I appreciate Nick Cannon pushing back. I appreciate people having these conversations. I think this is a conversation that, like, we just checked out. The pro-life position can be so polarizing, and a lot of the representatives of that movement, specifically the religious right, can be so checked out and so kind of tone deaf to a lot of the other social issues going on. And then the pro-choice position could just be so, like, blanketed, black and white. It's a woman's choice. It's a woman's body. Shut up. Don't you dare say anything otherwise, right? I appreciate this dialogue. I appreciate this conversation. I really do. And I'll get into some of my opinions later. But I just want to keep running through this. There's a lot of good stuff here.
But what you Hey, here we go.
Yo, Kanye's a fool.
But what you
Margaret
cannot
Sanger.
deny is these facts that Ye is about to give you right now.
Here we go. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, was an avowed racist whose goal was to reduce the black population in America, and she succeeded.
These are all facts, guys.
80% of abortion clinics in America are in minority neighborhoods. Over 22
Did you know that? I don't know if you guys knew that. Did you guys know that 80% of abortion clinics in America are in minority neighborhoods? That's a wild statistic if you think about it.
1,500,000 black babies have been aborted in 50 years. Over 1,000 black babies are aborted every day.
Whew.
So that
1,000 every day. That, jeez.
means we are inside of it as we speak.
This is genocide. So wait,
We
'cause
are
there's-
inside of
Yo, Nick Cannon said, this is genocide. Nick Cannon said that. That's, wow. I'm happy this discussion's happening.
inside
So
as
people,
we speak.
what about the people that are going to argue and say, but you know, Kanye doesn't have the right to speak on that because he's not a woman. The fact that Planned Parenthood does a lot of amazing things and they're in those communities because they need to be in those communities.
Well, I have to go to the word.
And by the way, what Nick Cannon is saying is true. I know people that have had to go to Planned Parenthood to get specific procedures, not just for abortions. They do provide birth control. They do provide contraceptives. I think the root of Planned Parenthood is very problematic. I think the fact that they perform so many abortions in so many black and brown neighborhoods is problematic. But to be fair, they do provide a lot of health services, free health services to women, to poor people. So just to be clear, that's what Nick is pushing back by. And I personally know people that have benefited from it, have felt conflicted, but have benefited from having a specific procedure that they had to get done in the Planned Parenthood because they couldn't get done with their general primary doctor. Let's keep watching.
God says he knew you before you were in the womb.
Yup.
Kanye said, let's go to the word. Let's go to the word. He said he knew you before you were in your mother's womb.
Jeremiah 1:5.
Yeah. So I got one other statistic. Abortion is the #1 killer of black lives in the United States, according to the Centers for Disease Control and
CDC.
Prevention.
Mm-hmm.
According to the CDC. According to the CDC. Okay, the CDC, the people that are putting out, did a video earlier on the CDC and then putting out statements. They just released a statement earlier about how only 6% of people who passed away from COVID had only COVID. They didn't have anything else. They just had COVID, right? And then the other 94 had other complications. But this is the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. This is what they're saying. So this isn't like a crazy right-wing statistic. This is from the CDC.
Abortion kills more black people than HIV, homicide, diabetes, accidents, cancer, and heart disease. Watch this one. Combined.
Woo! I didn't know that. That's crazy. So 20 million, 20. These are things that as a Christian, I'll be honest, these are numbers as a Christian that I'm aware of, but probably don't like to look at. And this is Ye challenging me, but I think all of us, to have this conversation in a public forum, to have these uncomfortable conversations that we don't want to have. Like, we know abortion's bad. We know, like, ooh, you know, there's alternatives. Like, the ultimate alternative is like, hey, don't get pregnant if you aren't ready to have a baby, right? Don't have unprotected sex. Like, that's the best solution. But we know that it happens, but I don't know if we know that it happens to this magnitude, right? This is a lot. 1,000 a day, right? 1,000 black babies a day. Let's keep watching.
Yeah.
Combined 3,000 shootings in Chicago a year, 700 murders. You got to put that with heart disease. You got to put that with HIV. You got to put that with diabetes. You got to put that with just accidents.
Yeah,
And you
in
put that
general.
with cancer.
Yeah.
And it doesn't add up to specifically abortions. And if you think about that number, 1,000 black babies are aborted each day.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've sent this to people, and there's some people that say, wow, that touches me. There's some people say, I feel that. And there's an overwhelming amount of people that I sent it to, and their response was, thank you for sending that.
With no emotion.
With no emotion. Thank you for sending? Thank you for, why would you thank anyone for sending that? I didn't even want to have to say the information out loud. But God said, yay, I need to use you. I'm one of the bullhorns. He's just been prepping me. Yeah. And he's been protecting me.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for years. I mean, you and I put Can I Live Together.
So those are some wild numbers. Those are some wild numbers. Those are some sad numbers. It's sad that so many people can't have kids, that there are people who can have kids and have kids that they don't want that are terminating these pregnancies. That is sad. That's just sad. It just is what it is, right? It just is what it is. It is unfortunate. And I'm happy that the conversation is happening, even though it's a really tough thing to think about. I know people who've had abortions. I got people close to me that have had abortions, right? When you really think about it, it's a pretty wild act. And I think it is one of those things that we will look back at in a long time from now, when they've perfected birth control, and anybody that doesn't want to get pregnant doesn't get pregnant, right? Like they've refined the technology to that degree. I think we will look back at this as a people and be like, yo, we was pretty barbaric to just be doing this act, right? And normalizing it, right? And making it normal. So let me get back to the show. Shout out to Justin for joining the channel membership. Appreciate you, brother. All right, so here's another clip. Let's keep watching.
You can only give God the glory because of the connection point to the birthday. The connection point to the birthday party.
No, so he talks about his birthday party, like he called his party for president the birthday party. And they didn't really get into him running for president on this part of the interview. However, he talks about the birthday party and how it's connected to this, which is really interesting. So watch this.
Is dealing with life and pro-life,
right?
Because these are kids that now are going to get a chance to have birthdays. Mm-hmm. Like for Daily Mail, who want to tear me down, for anyone who wants to tear me down for crying, you realize that because of South Carolina, there are people who have decided to have the child because they connected. And if they were on the fence about it, they never saw anyone in my position take that position.
Facts.
And say, look at this. This is a 7-year-old right here. And she might have never made it here.
Right.
And so when I talked to my father made me apologize to him for bringing this up publicly.
I've had that conversation with my father as well.
And then he also said, you know, the abortion culture teaches people that a child isn't a real soul.
The abortion culture teaches that the child isn't a real soul.
And it was my wife that said, this is a soul. And the scariest thing.
Yo, Kim Kardashian. Remember Kanye in that rally that he was ostracized for, that rally where he was ridiculed for, said that why did he break down and crying? We were like, he's unstable. He broke down and started crying because he was talking about him wanting to abort his first daughter the same way his dad wanted to abort him. Then he started crying. Kim Kardashian, who we dismiss and call a harlot, and Christians, look down their nose at her. Kim Kardashian was the one who fought and said that she had a soul. Just think about this for a second. Think about this.
Is she had the pills. You take these pills, you take them, and the next morning the baby's gone. She had the pills in her hand. And a lot of times people say, well, they want to jump to the most radical reason of why someone would not have a child. I said,
the most what is he talking about? The most radical people. Well, what about incest? Well, what about this? What about that? Right? The most radical reason. What about rape? And when you look at it, less than 2% of abortions are actually from incest or rape. 45% of people who have abortions have had a previous abortion. That's a true statistic. What does that mean? That means that almost half of the people who've had an abortion have had a previous abortion. What does that mean? That means that they're using it as a form of birth control. Right? It keeps happening. Keeps happening, right? Let's keep watching.
Said not, you know why I said not have a child? Because I'm still so mindful as a man about using the word abortion. That's how shook we are about using the word abortion
But
as
a lot,
men.
it's a topic that they say as men we should not be able. As two men sitting here, we should not be having a full conversation about abortion.
Well, that's a strategy to take the male opinion out of any conversation.
Woo! Now look. This right here is, this is good. He said as a man, and I'll be honest, I'm uncomfortable even talking about this because I know it's going to happen. YouTube's going to demonetize this video. I guarantee it. As a man, he said, I feel uncomfortable even saying the word abortion. And Nick Cannon says, yeah, we're told that we aren't allowed to talk about it. We're not allowed to even talk about it, right? We've been so programmed in our society, it's a woman's choice. It's a woman's body, her choice, her body, her choice. And watch what Kanye said. He says that's a strategy, which is, by the way, asinine. Listen, if you're pro-life, pro-choice from a political standpoint, not whatever, right? I think that's a human life. I think that's a human life in there. But to say men don't have a right to have a voice on the matter when it requires a man's sperm to impregnate, that's insane. So a man doesn't have a choice in the matter, but if a man gets you pregnant and you have the baby, which the man didn't want you have the right to go after him for child support. That doesn't really seem reasonable. It takes two people to conceive a child. It takes two people to raise a child. How? How is that not? What? No, right? This is that worldly asinine logic. And watch what he says here. And this is when he's gonna start getting some of you other, not you other, some of you guys are gonna get triggered. Hopefully you don't. Hopefully you see the value and the nuance and the both perspectives that he shares, right? But watch where he goes and watch where this conversation goes. Check this out.
Just taking the leaders and the males out of neighborhoods in the 80s. It's like you take
let me pull it back so you don't
conversation. Just taking
As two men sitting here, we should not be having a full conversation about abortion.
Well, that's a strategy to take the male opinion out of any conversation.
That's a strategy to take the male opinion out of any conversation. Watch where he goes. Watch where he goes. Some of you guys are going to be triggered. Some of you religious right people are going to be triggered. Watch where he takes this.
Taking the leaders and the males out of neighborhoods in the 80s.
Taking the leaders and the men out of neighborhoods in the 80s. What is he talking about? He's talking about the war on drugs. He's talking about how these neighborhoods were over-policed, where I did a whole video about this. I actually did kind of a debate on this, where the CIA knowingly allowed cocaine to flood the streets of black and brown neighborhoods and then come down harder on black men which then the prison population like quadrupled in that window. This is the 80s, right? This is systemic racism he's talking about here. I know some of you guys are triggered right now. Systemic racism doesn't exist. How dare you say systemic? I know some of you guys are triggered, but just hear him out. He's saying that when you dismiss and say a man can't have a voice on the issue of abortion, it's the same as you're trying to take away a man out of the home, out of the neighborhood, and that is exactly what happened in the 80s, which was under who? That was under Republican policies, right? There's a movie called Kill the Messenger by that you guys could go check it out, right? Oliver North did admit it. I did a whole video about this. Let's keep watching. Check this out.
It's like you take that opinion because you need both opinions.
Right.
You need the male and the female opinion, and also it's both people's child. Now I can get into, the funny thing is I posted a picture because I read that in New York. I heard that you can abort after 9 months.
No, he's talking about a late-term abortion law in New York if the mother's health was at risk. So I don't think New York legally can do late-term, like, casual abortions, but I do know there's a law that got passed that was really disgusting. And so that is what he is referring to right here. But I don't think it's like if you're just randomly pregnant, you can go get an abortion now. I don't think that's what that is. But there is a similar now. But watch what he says here.
But I saw on Google, they said 24 weeks. And I showed
24 weeks is mad late, just so you guys know. 24 weeks is extremely late. A lot of babies can live outside of the womb with support at 24 weeks. This is mad late.
a picture on my Twitter of a 24-week-year-old fetus. Would that be the term? And I got backlash. How you gonna put up that abortion tweet? And you know what it is? I was trying to appeal to humanity, but we can see in this world by the reaction that people had to me crying that there is no humanity. You could see the state of the world.
Well, it's a lot of people in pain, yeah. Like it's a lot of people, so they focus on their pain and like they want to.
He said we could see that there is no humanity. Right, and then Nick Cannon chimes in. He says a lot of people are in pain. Watch what he says here, though.
They want to polarize. They want to say this is where you wrong.
He said, I posted a picture of a 24-week-old fetus because you can get an abortion in many states up to 24 weeks. And he said, I tried to appeal to people's humanity.
You can't do this. You can't do that, or ridicule or make fun of it.
So now, since there is no humanity, then there has to just be God and man, and you can't serve two masters. So
I can't appeal to your humanity, so now there just has to be God and man. You can't serve two masters. Wow. That's heavy. That's heavy. So this is Kanye on his whole, this is him speaking about abortion, coming out as very pro-life, having these conversations, saying, and being very in his right frame of mind. He doesn't seem to be having a manic episode. He doesn't seem to be out of his mind, right? He seems to be very, very, very present and engaged. Now, I'm going to shift gears real quick. So in the second part of this interview, he makes a point that I think is very interesting. So the first part, he talks about his positions on pro-life and family. He talks about attempting to appeal to people's humanity by showing what a 24-week fetus is, that you can get aborted. He's trying to appeal to people's humanities. People aren't getting it. He's saying, so, you know, since there is no more humanity, there's just us and God, and you can't serve two masters, right? Which is, I mean, this is a very compelling point. But watch where he goes here on some of these. He already made a really good social point about how dismissing a man's perspective from the birth conversation is similar to how they pulled black men out of homes during the war on drugs, which look up the Fair Sentencing Act 2010, right? But watch where he goes from here. Watch what he starts breaking down. This is interesting. This is really, really interesting. Some of you guys are going to be triggered. Trigger warning.
That you know you have such an influence, such an amazing power. You've proven people wrong time and time again. So people take you very seriously when you say these things. So when you speak on topics that are polarizing, like abortion, when you speak on topics even like the man's place, the black man's place in society, when you speak on the efforts of being able to say what you want to say, does that ever? Because I know you're a man of instinct, but does that the backlash that you do receive, do you ever get concerned about that? Because I don't, and I didn't. But now when I hurt people with my words, I didn't mean to do that, and that's where I was like, all right, this is a different energy for me. Because I used to be like, you know how we vibe, like.
And this is Nick kind of alluding to his situation with some of his anti-Semitic quotes, then having the rabbi on, repenting, apologizing, which I actually think Nick did a good job on it. I was very critical of some of the stuff he said. And so this is kind of, I think, what he's alluding to, by the way, here. Hey, by the way, if you're watching this live, give this video a quick like. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. And gang of y'all ain't subscribed, so hit the subscribe button, and let's keep watching this.
Say what the hell I want to say. But when people are in pain and then you see people come to conflict because of what you said, that can't be what you want.
Bro, we be having to act like housekeepers in America. The most influential, strongest black voices have to act like housekeepers. And what I mean by that is, and I love housekeepers, right? But a housekeeper, if one housekeeper speaks up, they're going to say, shut up. You're going to get us all fired. That's our position. We were brought over here in servitude to this country. So as soon as we start to make any moves, if it's not the way that we were told, the way that we were bought, the way we, then you crazy. Bro, I got snubbed off the Forbes list for 2 years.
So this is a very interesting concept, right? And he says the most successful black leaders in this country have to carry themselves like housekeepers. I mean, he's like, but I love housekeepers. What is he saying? Housekeepers have to what? Watch their tone. Housekeepers, it's not about what they say, it's about how they say it. It's about when they say it. It's about not disrespecting somebody, not making somebody feel threatened. And I don't know how many black friends you have in your personal life, but this is something that I've heard. And I've actually, if you guys go check out Belief's video, Belief just released a video recently, and he talked about this idea, and I've heard a lot of my black friends talk about this idea, where there's this pressure where they have to, how Belief described it is, water down their blackness around their Anglo-Saxon friends, I believe was the correct quote. That a lot of times they're not putting their full black experience in front of you, right? And Kanye described it as acting like a housekeeper. 1VX on the track said walking on eggshells. That's an interesting way to say it, right? Walking on eggshells. Because if you are too outspoken, then, oh, you're crazy. You get dismissed as crazy. If you're too aggressive, you're the angry black guy, right? If you're too woke, you see what I'm saying? And so this is a part that, if we're honest, when you factor in his statements about the war on drugs, which maybe you watched that, you didn't quite understand what he said. What he was saying was that there was a systemic assault on black and brown neighborhoods in the 80s because of the war on drugs, okay? And then he goes on to say, black people in America have to act like, the most powerful black people in America have to act like housekeepers, the most powerful, right? And that is a very, very, very interesting concept. And I think those of you guys that would agree with him on the first part, if you're a white evangelical, which I think I have a good amount of those people that watch this channel, and you're like, yeah, Kanye, yay, Kanye is pro-life, that is great, right? But then when he drops the war on drugs and he says, yeah, but black people have to walk on eggshells around you. Black people don't really show their full blackness on display in front of a lot of white people, because you can get dismissed as crazy, you can get dismissed as the angry black man, you can get dismissed very quickly. That is where I think people on the other side, people who may like the pro-life views, like the pro-Jesus message, which obviously I'm a fan of, will be challenged in, right? When you start talking about the war on drugs, when you start talking about systemic racism, when you start talking about structural racism, when you start talking about what happened that led to how big the black male population grew, right? When he's talking about these things, all of a sudden there's not a lot of support for him. There's not a lot of let's get behind him, and yes, let's figure out ways that we can undo some of these laws that were passed, like the Fair Sentencing Act, which Obama passed in 2010, but there's still a 17-to-1 ratio. And again, you can go watch my War on Drugs. You can go watch Kill the Messenger. There's a ton of content on there about that, which were passed under, to be clear, were passed under Republican presidents, Republican governors, and some Democrats, right? So it is true that Joe Biden also wrote the some of the crime bill and the Clintons passed, but the stuff that happened in the late 70s and early 80s, and when the wealth gap grew, when the black prison population grew, this stuff, be clear, this stuff was done by Republicans. This was done by Ronald Reagan. This was done by George Bush. Sr., right? You see what I'm saying? So we have to have just scales. And he paralleled the war on drugs to the same way, removing the black male voice, removing fathers and husbands out of the home in the war on drugs, which happened. You can look it up, and some of you guys are shocked that this happened in America. It happened in America. He's paralleling that to the same as dismissing men from the conversation of what is appropriate for men to talk about, why it is or isn't appropriate for men to talk about when it comes to the issue of abortion. It's very interesting. This is a very interesting. And in the process, you guys watched the whole interview. He's going to talk about, the rest of this. He's going to flex about being a billionaire a couple times and how Forbes snubbed him from the billionaire list. He's going to talk about fashion. He's going to talk about wanting to be cool. He's going to talk about his number one calling as a father and a husband. There's a lot of really good stuff here. But those of us that take the time, just like with anything, those of us that take the time to actually hear somebody in long form, to actually see what they are saying out of their mouth, not tidbits on Twitter floating around or viral clips, but actually hear somebody out, you'll realize that he's not crazy. He would say Yeezy, right? That's a whole nother thing. He coined a new phrase, Yeezy. It's very, very interesting. And I hope that conversations like this would challenge you to have tough, difficult conversations with people in your life that you may disagree with or you may not understand, right? Shout out to, I think you say her name, Imina. She said, learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, and please the widows. Isaiah 1:17. I love that passage. Thank you so much for sharing that. She dropped another one on us. He says, he has told you, oh man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. And let's just be clear. When we're talking about justice, we have to look at it from both sides, right? It's not just about social and racial issues. It's also about the unborn. That is also a social issue. That is also a humanitarian issue. Just like police brutality is a humanitarian issue. Just like racism is a humanitarian issue. And we're so quick to dismiss and politicize these things and be divided in the media. However, these are humanitarian issues, right? These are humanitarian issues, and we need to be a part of the solutions, right? Which is, first of all, seeking to understand, extending empathy, so on and so forth, but also learning how to win in this system, How do we win? How do we succeed? How do we play this game? How do we position our lives so that, yes, well, there'll always be some degree of discrimination, whether you're a man looking to speak on abortion, whether you're a black person maybe in the corporate world, a black person pulled over, there will be some degree of discrimination. But how do we build our lives, build our families, build our homes, build our communities in a way where no one has power and control over you and your economic development? How do we do that? And I think that is why what Kanye has done is so dope, because he's a black billionaire. He's like one of, I think, a dozen. I think there's like a dozen or 15 black billionaires, and he's one of them. And that should inspire you on a symbolic level, just like having a black president, with Obama. That was inspiring. Having a Christian billionaire who's outspoken about his faith, that's inspiring. But that should also give you some degree of hope in terms of how did he get there? What did he do? What did he work on, right? And I'm not saying everybody's going to be a billionaire. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that economic freedom, that financial freedom, that building wealth, building generational wealth, doing our part, we can all do that. And 80% of America's millionaires, not billionaires, 80% of America's millionaires are first generation rich. Meaning they did not inherit it, they did not win the lottery, they didn't win it in some lawsuit. 80% of America's millionaires are first generation rich. So those are my thoughts, man. Let me know what you guys think about this. I would love to hear from you in the comments section. Be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on. I go live every single day. I don't want you guys to miss any of these. And if you want to partner with what we're doing, consider joining the most talented community in all the world, which is Patreon. Also, consider joining channel members. That would be super dope. Or go buy some merch. Link is in the description. I'm going to drop the full interview. You guys can go watch it. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Love you guys. Peace.